Tonight on West Coast, Wheeling with Deeley, the motorcycle millionaire. And we do some girl watching. That is, we watch the girls watch the guys.
Good evening and welcome to West Coast. One of the most enduring images of post-war North American society has to be the biker. We're not referring to the thousands of people who simply ride motorcycles as transportation, but to those who live a life built around the motorcycle. Sometimes they're outlaws, sometimes just loners, but always misunderstood. The biker still captures our imagination and curiosity. To those who live in the world of the biker, it's got little to do with image and everything to do with freedom.
Since he was 16, Keith Bushnell, the son of a London bobby, has been riding motorcycles. He got his first Harley Davidson 10 years ago. He looks like the biker image that has been packaged and sold to the pop culture of the 80s like so much fast food. You expect him to be a forklift operator or a mechanic.
You can see a lot more fullness there now.
Look again. Keith Bushnell is a hairdresser.
Do you get the feeling that that biker stereotype is still there?
A little bit, more when the cops pull you over and give you a hard time, you know, and take your number plate off because you've only got one rear view mirror, that kind of stuff. But most people, it's like, hey, looking good, nice bike, you know?
Mornings are
The media likes to pick up on nasty things that happen in the world, you know, like you just watch the news and everything's nasty on the news, right? There's actually, the bikers do a lot of good things, you know.
The motorcycle community has many factions, and none are given more media attention than the motorcycle clubs. This funeral for a member who had been killed by a police car in 1983 brought together a huge contingent of the most hardcore, Hell's Angels and Satan's Angels. Keith Bushnell would have been there, but he had to work.
Brad, I got a customer out here. He's having trouble shifting with this transmission. It's a Sportster, and he thinks it might be this shifter plate here.
Upper shifter plate. Okay, let's have a boo at her.
Terry Ray is another biker who hates the image he's been branded with. In fact, he hates the term.
What is a biker?
A biker is somebody who's been starred in a Hollywood movie, generally a grade B or grade C movie that's has been sensationalized to look like something out of the prehistoric days. The only difference being that he rides a motorcycle, and it's a horrible misconception.
Terry is service manager at Vancouver Harley-Davidson, where they trade on that Hollywood image. The Born to Be Wild set that rode the choppers of the 60s and 70s are still there, but there's another group of Harley enthusiasts, the Rubs, rich urban bikers who are jumping on the band cycle and getting into the wind.
For 35 years, you've ridden a bike and you've worn leathers and boots and had a Harley and done the whole trip. And now in one summer, somebody tries to become you. Don't you feel ripped off?
I'd only feel ripped off if I wasn't allowed to do it.
When you ride a motorcycle home from work, you understand why bikers feel the rest of us are just starting to catch on. Terry lives in a house in Burnaby he inherited from his father. In the garage, you guessed it, a show bike, his pride and joy.
What do you feel about the new generation of motorcycle enthusiasts? Are they the kind of people that you want to be passing the torch on to?
Yes, I find that they are just as enthusiastic, if not maybe more so than I was at that age. They're, a lot of them are not quite as mechanical as people were back in the days when we were there, because we didn't have the shops, we didn't have the availability of parts and things, and we had to make do with what we had.
This bike once belonged to Terry's son. At the age of 21, Kevin was hit by a train. Terry restored his son's bike in his memory.
I don't really believe in gravestones and things like that, of that nature. I just believe that this may be what he wanted to do with the bike, so I went about it. The color scheme may be a little different than he likes, but then again, I have to ride it, so I backed off a little on the colors.
Getting on a Harley is an experience neither would trade for anything. It has become part of them, part of their persona. But the biker image it presents is not theirs, it's someone else's.
I consider myself to be just a family man. I've raised a family. I own a home in Burnaby. I pay my taxes. I pay my bills when I can. I try to avoid problems with the law, just like anybody else.
I play tennis, I swim, and I ride my motorcycle as well, right? I can spend hours cleaning my motorcycle on a Sunday. My wife, if I'm a bit grumpy, my wife says, "Oh, go and play with your motorcycle."
At the core of the North American biker image is, of course, the motorcycle, but not just any motorcycle, the Harley-Davidson. David Kincaid recently spent the day with a man who made a fortune in BC selling the bike that makes the image.
I'm just turning over Stevenson inbound for Pat Charlie.
I have a lot of friends that don't think I ever worked, but I remember putting in 18 and 20-hour days week after week when I was trying to promote Honda and Yamaha in the years gone by. But they've paid off, and paid off very successfully.
At 69, Trev Deeley is enjoying the fruits of his labor. In fact, he could be used as a role model for the good life. He commutes from his Vancouver Island home to his business in Richmond in his own helicopter. Trev and his wife spend their winters in Hawaii. He drives expensive cars and he rides motorcycles. Specifically, Harley-Davidsons. Because Trev Deeley is where he is today largely because of a long and enduring relationship with Harleys. That loyalty paid off in 1973 when Trev Deeley was named the sole distributor for Harleys in Canada.
For many, many years now, I've been primarily a distributor. That store on Broadway now is selling Harley-Davidson motorcycles, but the distribution of Harley-Davidsons for all of Canada is in this building here in Richmond. So our biggest business, so to speak, is not out of that store on Broadway. It's here and in our warehouse in Toronto. I always was a Harley-Davidson booster. I raced for the Harley-Davidson factory even when I was selling other stuff, and my heart always lied with Harley-Davidson. However, Harley never had distributors. They were all dealt just with dealers, which we were on Broadway. And when we finally sold out our Japanese interests, our Yamaha and Honda businesses, I was appointed the Harley-Davidson distributor for Canada, and it's been one of the greatest relationships of my life. It's just super.
The relationship began in 1917 when Trev's grandfather, Fred, obtained a Harley-Davidson dealership. Ever since, the Deeley family has been associated with Harley. Trev's dad expanded the business to include cars, but Trevor's true love was the motorcycle.
And after the war, the Harley-Davidson racing team was started up with various riders appointed throughout the country, and I joined the racing team and stayed with it for about 15 years. And my racing was done mostly in the southern part of the United States, Florida, California, Oregon, Washington, and some in British Columbia and Alberta, but not a great deal. And I've just had a great fondness for Harley, and still do, of course.
Trev Deeley is much more than just an astute businessman. He really loves the machinery that has made him wealthy. This is Trev's museum. Here you'll find some of his favorite bikes, and he has stories about all of them. The Deeley success story shows no sign of letting up. In fact, these days, the biggest problem facing the company is not being able to supply the ever-growing demand for Harley-Davidsons.
It goes back to 1903. That's when the factory built their first motorcycle, and they've been building motorcycles at the same address on Juneau Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin ever since that. And there is no question that there are hundreds of thousands of people throughout the U.S. and Canada that at one time or another came in contact with a Harley-Davidson. I don't know whether it was in the war or prior to the war, or they had one, and their sons have had them, and they built a very fine motorcycle. They have an excellent reputation, very, very high resale value, and they have a certain prestige. And there's a mystique, too, that I'm not even sure I can explain or understand, but they have a certain prestige to them that people just seem to want to own a Harley-Davidson. I know one case where the motorcycle was purchased and it was delivered to a garage, and the motorcycle sits there, and when this gentleman and his wife have a cocktail party or whatever, everybody has to go out and see this man's Harley. Okay, phone her and tell her I'll be in to see her around 1:30, 2 o'clock.
These days, Trev is in the office a couple of days a week. Officially, he is semi-retired, but he has no desire to leave the business entirely.
I talk about this retirement thing, but I'm not too sure there's ever going to be a full retirement. I'm still going to keep an office here, and I'm still going to go to the annual dealer meetings, and I'm still on the board of Harley for another few years. And as long as I can pack a suitcase and lug it around and get around, I'll continue to do that. I could have packed it up years ago, but I just love everybody that I got working for me, and I have a gut feeling that that's returned to me. I notice it when I walk in the building, and I notice it when I go home, and when I'm not here, there's different people phone about one thing or another, and it's a very satisfying way of life as far as I'm concerned.
Coming up, beautiful music deep in the heart of Texas, the Van Cliburn competition.
Chilling tornado action and incredible chase footage you have to see to believe. Pickups hurling hundreds of feet in the air. Highways ripped away. Tornadoes of fire. And amazing close calls as tornadoes